to Cham Pols, the world of chameleons. Now, this episode took a lot less longer than episode 6, in which I'm actually happy about it that I made it, because I literally made this entire thing in one day, and I'm actually quite happy for myself to do that. So, yeah, and you know what, I don't want the intro to be too long, as this video might be a little bit longer than episode 6. So, if you don't know what Cham Pols is, Cham Pols is, well, a seed world. A seed world is an alien world that is seeded with Earth life by another intelligent life form. In the last episode, a meteor crashed through Cham Pols. This meteor has devastated the planet's continents. As you can see, it's made a whole new biome, the lagoon, and 2 other biomes. It's also created the crack in Melos to become a giant river. And, as you can see, Tungulus got pretty devastated, and a path of Kamara has broken apart and drifted on top of the lagoon. No one has named that little island yet, but soon it might be. So now you can say that there are 3 major islands. And now I'll be doing some of the sad part, listing the creatures that went extinct. And I'm only going to be talking about the ones in Tungulus that went extinct because, well, not many other animals went extinct. As a matter of fact, none really, as Tungulus has now changed significantly. And since the meteor was closer to Tungulus, yeah, it got pretty damaged. Not many creatures, though, went extinct. I mean, the flower tigers went extinct. The flower ticks went extinct. The flower dragons went extinct. The grass deer in the land went extinct. And so did the grass swifter. These are the only guys that went extinct, mainly because food after the meteor impact was a lot more devastating, and plus, their entire home got split into 2. As you can see, it was pretty devastating. And this is the culprit. This meteor, nicknamed Landing Star, is what caused all of this. But surprisingly, it's a lot smaller than the meteor that killed out the dinosaurs. And you might be wondering, then how did it cause all this damage? There's only a couple reasons why. For one, Cham Pols is smaller than Earth, so it can cause a little bit more damage because, well, Cham Pols is around the size of, well, Venus. Another one is that its oceans aren't as deep as Earth. Earth's deepest point is the Mariana Trench, which can go up to 36,100 feet. So, pretty deep. While Cham Pols' deepest point in the ocean is only upward at about 20,134 feet, which is, coincidentally, the same place that the meteor hit. What a coincidence. And also, mainly because, well, Earth's oceans are mainly comprised of bedrock and stone and stuff like that. Hard stuff, hard material. Well, Cham Pols' deep point of ocean is mainly comprised of things like sand and mud. This caused tons and tons of this stuff to be catapulted into the Strill's continent plate, which caused it to be pushed back by all the debris, which caused it to bust right through Tungulus, which split it in half, split its 2 little tectonic plates in half, which is what caused it. So, it was pretty devastating, and that's why it looks this bad. Also, the meteor was hit part of Kamara, which created that, and earthquakes caused by the impact is what caused Melos to get a big river. A small little wolf-a-million looks around for food. It sees a dead flower tiger. Behind it is rushing wildfires. It's heavily damaged. It got kicked out of its pack because it takes up way too many resources. It's forced to forage on its own. It's barely even a juvenile yet, and has to look for its own food. It sees the dead flower tiger. It's chopped in half. Looks like something else came through. It has to eat it. They don't usually eat flower tigers, but it's desperate. As it's digging through its flesh, it can't help but look around and see its eyes. The flower tiger's lifeless, cold, empty, dead eyes. It's soulless. That's how you can tell. There's no glimmer in it, no shine. They're sunken in. That's how you can tell something's dead. It seems to be fine, even though there's roaring fires behind it and it consumes the flesh. But it seems like it's going to make it. The wounds on it are somewhat not fatal until it hears something. Something that doesn't want it to live. And that was the last of that little wolf a million. Back to our regular schedule, we'll be talking about some of the biomes here. First up, we'll be talking about Melos's Crack, which have now become a river, known as the Great River. The Great River is a titanic river that stretches all across the continent. It's a big one, and it has its own unique fauna in it. It also has many segments inside the river, similar to an ocean. At the top are known as the top waters. Top waters house a bunch of algae mats and are quite safe if you know what to do. And then there are the middle waters. Middle waters are quite deep, yet some sunlight can still get down there. And it's somewhat safe, but water pressure gets a little strong. And then there are the deep waters. Deep waters, barely any sunlight gets down there, and it's a lot less fun, let's just say that. Starting off with, this is the river coelomelian. The river coelomelian is a subsection of the coelomelian that didn't evolve beaks, but instead evolved fleshy mouths with sharp, pointy teeth. These guys are omnivores and mainly lounge around on the surface of the water. They do this because they're quite lazy, as they just do this to bask and slowly float, propelling themselves with their arms slowly and steadily. Because of this, much algae gets on top of their back, which causes algae growth on their back. These guys eat algae mats, which causes a lot of gunk and algae to get stuck in their teeth, which causes a lot of more smaller animals to come by. Then it sucks up them small creatures when it's done feeding and eats them, making it an omnivore, as they'll eat anything that's in front of their face. And small entire ecosystems can come by these guys, especially on top of the algae. A strange little creature often swims by this somewhat living ecosystem. This is the clawed limp. The clawed limp branched off from the jawed limp and didn't evolve a jaw, but instead kept its pinchers. It now looks like a giant crayfish that lives in these fresh waters. They're quite large and eat small fish and invertebrates. They don't attack the algae coelomelian, or freshwater coelomelian, or river coelomelian, whatever you want to call it. And instead, they'll crawl on their back to eat the algae, as these guys are omnivores, eating algae and small invertebrates and, little animals. So they can be often found just resting on top of their back, eating the algae and basically anything up there. Some of their main sorts of diet, however, is the freshwater jawed limp. The freshwater jawed limp is a very peculiar type of organism. These guys eat algae and filter feed sometimes, using their jaw to pick up the algae and eat it. They'll also suck in bacteria and zooplankton that can be found in the water. They're often the ones cleaning the teeth of the the river coelamellian, and oftentimes getting, well, sucked into it because eventually it's going to suck them into it and close its mouth. Nothing much is to say about them except that they live in big schools and live in fresh water and are peculiar. Now we move over to the middle segments of the water. This is a mud sharkamillion. The mud sharkamillion is a descendant of the sharkamillion. They are very carnivorous. They mainly live their lives throughout the middle waters, however will go up to the top waters to feed. They mainly feed on baby river coelamellians and other small invertebrates. They'll also eat snails. And they have a peculiar type of food that they can find down here as well. What is that food that they might find down here? Well, of course, it's the schooling pictus, of course. The schooling pictus, hence its name, is a type of pictus that swims in large schools. They're very cute, but these schools can consist of 100 individuals. They eat algae and snails and marine snow as their diet. And are quite cute looking, and sometimes they can form big shadows out of their fish that make it look like a predator. However, there's not any other real predators out there besides the mud shark pictus. So sometimes this is proven not very well, but at least they're trying, right? And now we got the deep, dark waters, where we can find a very creepy organism. This is the tentacle snail. The tentacle snail is the first divergence of snails on Cham Pols. In these deep waters, their antennae have become long tendrils that they use to snatch up anything in the water. They mainly eat schooling pictus that sometimes go down there to find more snails to eat, snatching them up with their tendrils, which can actually move at quite fast speeds. And their mouth, which has now been comprised of an octopus-like beak divergent from their small little tiny teeth, which now become a beak. They don't really see that well, but why even see when you can jet large tentacles things? So the tentacles are mainly their sensory organs. These guys eat snails and fish and small invertebrates, and even sometimes cannibalize each other. So, a very peculiar first way for the snails to start off their evolution. Now we travel over to a new biome. The jungles. The jungles are quite large, particularly we're talking about the jungles on Melos, near the rivers. The first organism that we'll be looking at in these forests is the spotted rhinohopper. The spotted rhinohopper has spots running down its carapace. Its carapace is also quite shiny. They're also one of the largest rhinohoppers out there and have a thick herbivorous diet. They no longer live in herds and are quite aggressive. One of the most aggressive invertebrates. Even if you step close to it and it feels bothered, it will stick its horn in you. That doesn't sound very fun. So, if you are a small animal and you see these guys eating grass or any other small vegetation, it's best to, well, stay back, or this thing might get a little cranky. Next up is, well, a very strange name for an organism, but the fat Daramillion. Yes, it has a comical name, but the reason being is that it doesn't have long, slender legs like the other Daramillions. Instead, has fatter, bolder bodies. And these guys also are not even a type of Daramillion. They're a type of, well, strange type of Squirrelamillion that no longer lives in the trees. That's quite hard to believe, but yeah, it's true. And these guys have long, sharp, bony claws that they use to dig for tubers and are herbivores now. A very strange coincidence in evolution, but that's what these guys wanted, I guess. And now, that's what they're gonna get. A strange creature that somewhat resembles a deer, pig, chameleon? I don't know. Next up is one of my favorites in these jungles. This is the sniffing chameleon. The sniffing chameleon is a descendant of the frilled turtleback chameleon. As you can see, they look rather strange. Their normal coloration, instead of being usually green or something, it's reddish, more maroonish. And it also has vegetation on its back. And there's also a baby here. But the baby is black? Why? Well, it all has to do with their hibernation. Or more so, just sleeping. When they sleep, they burrow their bodies within the dirt. And because of this, the dirt is very acidy and more rich in acidy, which is usually why fossils don't originate in jungles. Because of this somewhat dyes their scales a different color. Their natural color would be black, but because of it dyeing their scales, it's now red. And the vegetation grows because much dirt gets on their back when sleeping, so then it grows seeds into it, which makes green back. Babies are black to absorb as much sunlight as they can while sleeping, but eventually they're going to grow plants on their back because of the dirt getting in there, and eventually they're going to become red. These guys mainly eat seeds, tubers, and roots, and worms. And these guys somewhat have external ears, but they're actually not ears at all, but instead they're frills that have gone down. Their frills no longer go from the side like a frilled dragon, but instead go up and down like flashing or something. A very strange type of reptile. And soaring through the skies over the giant river and the tropical forests and temperate forests, this is the first flying bird. This is the flying fowl. The flying fowl has grown long wings and able to take to the skies. It's a majestic sight. Jungle fowls and, well, chickens can already fly, but not that great of a distance. But these guys can fly for a very long time, just like modern-day birds, and spend most of their life in the sky. Nothing much is to say about them, except that they are, really, a good flying, long flying chicken. They take to the west side of Cham Pols, while the other chameleons take to the east side. So a flying arms race might begin with the world. Now we travel to a whole another biome. A biome that's rather wet. In the shrublands, there used to be oases, and there still are now. These oases had sago palms and lots of shrubs and cacti and water. It was a very nice spot for creatures, mainly shrub singers and sailed shrub singers, to come by and just get a good drink of water and get a lot more vegetation and fruits maybe. You never know. But because of the meteor impact, big tsunamis came through. These tsunamis crashed into the shrublands. In the hotter segments of the shrublands, it would evaporate. But in the wetter, more damp oasis-like biomes in the shrublands, it became a swamp-like biome known as the mudlands, which is full of mud. Because of a boost in nutrients of water, they have been known as the swamp shrub trees. The swamp shrub trees are pretty tall shrub-like trees. And of course, you got your other tinier shrubs. No cactuses are in here, so luckily you don't have to worry about getting pricked. So it's somewhat safe with plant life, but what about animal life? The first animal we'll be looking at is a swamper fly. The swamper fly is a parasite. They don't have their mandibles anymore, but instead have a sharp proboscis to drink the blood. Terrifyingly, these guys are like botflies and will lay their larvae into the skin of creatures. The larvae will eat until they're big enough to metamorphosize. so it would be quite uncomfortable to have one of their little larvas into you. So they're a very pesky pest. They're also very poisonous if you were to eat them, so watch out. Make sure you don't get near a swarm of these bad boys, unless you want a larva in, like, your ear or something, I don't know. They'll lay it everywhere, so yeah, be careful. Another strange creeper is, well, a swamp hopper. A swamp hopper is a type of, like, them sand swifters that have now fangs coming out of their carapace on the head. These fangs are used to stab into their prey as they hold them down, then eat them with their sharp, serrated mandibles. They're definitely a pretty good predator that you might want to watch out for. They mainly eat small, little insects and vertebrates, and have an immunity to the poison found in the swamper fly, so they'll eat them too, luckily. But they'll also eat small little animals. But they're not the top predators in these swamps. These guys are known as the swamp crocomelion. The swamp crocomelion was a descendant of the crocomelions that have now taken to the swamps. The swamps are moist and nice in habitat. You can often find these guys basking in the sun on the banks. They also ambush prey like that of, well, crocodiles, and are very cute. Their bite force is not as strong though, and they're really cool, and just don't be careful when you get into murky segments of the water. Oh wait, I forgot. All the water's murky. Just don't step into the water unless you want a leg missing or death by these guys. But they're not the top predators in these waters. That belongs to these guys. This is the giant walking pictus. The giant walking pictus is like a Japanese giant salamander as it crawls up out of the water. These guys can actually kill swamp crocomelions because their bite force is way stronger. They might not be as big or sometimes, but they're definitely something to look at. They also have the crocodile-like attacking method, waiting for creatures to drink water, then them snatching up out of the water and grabbing them and pouring them in the water. They'll eat anything, making them omnivorous because they'll eat leaves too. But they are the top predators in these muddy swamps. And these guys are known as walking chameleons. Walking chameleons, hence their name, walk. They somewhat have a similarity to what kangaroos do with their walking. These guys can stand up and stand back down, but mainly they walk bipedally like a dinosaur or sometimes even kangaroos. They also hop like kangaroos. Sometimes they're giving their nickname camellaroos sometimes, using their muscular tails to help them too. They're very interesting, and this might lead to something very, very special. Now I move over to another biome near the mudlands. And that biome is the savannas. The savannas were a lot more moisture got into there, but not as much to make it a mudland, but it became a savanna. There's also cactuses here, so watch out. And the first animal that we'll be looking at is the dune devil. The dune devil is a very, very strong organism. They eat almost anything they can find. Dead animals, carrion, plants, and living organisms. Dune devils make dunes when they're nesting, which is why they call them dune devils. They also have an extra side on their carapace, making them more flexible, and it almost looks like a little neck. So, very strange. These guys also have 4 sets of horns. So yeah, definitely something you'd want to watch out for and not get rammed by. Next up is the sucamelion. The sucamelion has moved its legs underneath its body, like many of the prehistoric crocodilians. These guys are the top predators in the savannas. Their bite force is of that of a wolf and can break bone with it. They can also run quite fast. These are descendants of the crocodilian, obviously, and are very strange and peculiar, just like, well, the original Suchians and crocodiles back during, well, the Triassic period. So they're definitely something you might want to watch out for when, living your life, I guess? You never know. And at the dead of night, you can find a sand demon. A sand demon is a smaller lineage of Doom Devil. These guys' middle pair of legs are a lot smaller than the other ones that they use to stab into their prey when jumping on top of them, which they use to stab into their prey, then pull them up to their mouth and eat them. They don't use their horns mainly until for sexual display and other things. They're nocturnal and only come out at night, so they have specialized eyes so they can see better at night amongst the green night sky. Also, shrub singers and sailed shrub singers also live here, so just keep that in mind when you see some walking around the savannah. Now we move over to another biome, the cold Arctic, specifically the South Pole. Both the North and South Pole used to be ruled by lobsters, but now the South Pole has a new contender. Oceanic duckfowls migrated here, and now have filled in empty niches. This is the polar fowl. The polar fowl is almost like a penguin. They move in great flocks, and when they're hens, they'll carry their chicks on their back, unless it's snowing. And if it's snowing, their chicks will go under them to keep them warm. But other times, they're just nesting on their back. They're very cute, but something arises a question. Will these guys have conversations with the snow bunnies? Not all the time, but sometimes on rare occasions, they'll get in conferences and attack each other. But most of the time, they keep to themselves and don't really attack each other. But sometimes, if they find a dead snow bunny, they'll consume it. Polar fowls are not picky eaters and will eat anything. But they're mostly just eating fish and invertebrates. Yes, invertebrates, just like snow bunnies. Here, we see a young rooster, polar fowl, moving through. His flock is just up ahead, but they're taken. He hasn't eaten anything all day. They keep on stealing it from him. He wants to go find his own food. So that's what he's going to do. He's going to find his own food. As the snow begins to fall, the chicks jump off the mom's back and go underneath him. He won't stop them. He'll hear them somewhere. He's not worried. He's going to find them. But he just wants to eat something. He's hungry. He then finds a clearing of the water. There's a big ice block in it. So, he decides to jump on it as it drifts off in the water. He's not worried though. These guys can swim quite good as well. Their ancestors were semi-aquatic birds that lived out in the ocean. He then sticks his beak inside the water, waiting for him to feel movement of the fish. He hasn't been out near the water much before, as he's still quite young, but he wants his food. He then sees something in the water. It looks to be a fish. He's getting ready to snap at it, until it snaps back. He screeches in pain, but no one can hold against the blinding blizzard. He was never seen after that again. You have to wonder what killed him. This is what killed him. This is a seal fowl. A seal fowl has converged on a niche similar to that of a seal. They're also descendants of the oceanic fowl and have grown brown fur, like feathers. Their feathers are like that of penguins and very stocky. These guys also give birth to live young, as giving birth to live young is a lot faster than just laying eggs, which is a lot harder because, well, in the Arctic, they can die a lot easier, and these guys are more in the water than on land. These guys will come up on land, like sea lions or seals, to just perch and bask and just sit there against the stony, icy shores. These guys' large fins make the maneuver like seals, and they also have black feet that keep heat. So they're gonna keep heat instead of reflect heat. So, because that is one of the most vulnerable parts of them. Cold feet ain't no good anyway. And this is the ice pictus. Ice pictus is a type of pictus that now lives in cold polar ice. They managed to survive because now they've taken up similarities to what polar fish do. They also swim in schools, and that's what that young rooster was trying to fetch. These guys scavenge off of anything, as well as types of marine plants that I'll be going over here in a second. These guys also have beaks to break through ice if they have to, and to break the carapaces of small invertebrates that they might find here, like small larvae of ice skinks or something. And now we have polar seagrass. Polar seagrass is a type of plant that managed to survive the polar, using specialized parts of its body to survive the cold, sticking their broad leaves out to collect sunlight. They're also a lot more darker pigment to absorb more sunlight. And, well, the ice polar pictus, whatever you want to call them, definitely enjoy their growth. As you can see, many animals have grown quite large, and they're only going to get larger in the next episode. And, well, speaking of the next episode we'll be discussing the rise of intelligence.